you're an influencer
Am I?
for the gospel.
Ooh, that's the best influencer of all.
I mean, it's like being on a mommy blog, except
It's the Shepcast.
it is absolutely Shepcast. Yeah. All right. Good. What are we looking at for our readings for? Is that enough opening banter?
Do you want to talk some more?
Well, sort of. Except we're gonna cut all that.
Oh, right, we are.
I don't know, man. It's a beautiful time to be alive. Election season. I do love it, and I like watching the results come in. It's exciting. Welcome to the fun cast. I hope it's a fun cast. Is it James again?
Of course it is.
Well, then welcome to the miserable cast.
Yeah,
He's hard on people.
he is. Like, not only we have the two best books this week.
Jeremiah and James. Okay.
Yeah. So, and they're both kind of downer books, you know, like.
Yeah, but sometimes it's good to have downer.
You know,
we
especially in this like physical season right now, like where you have, I know everybody's all like, yay, the fall, pumpkin spice lattes, blah blah blah, but for me, I'm more of a summer person, right? So as we move into the fall, it's kind of feeling gloomy. It's kind of feeling bleh.
Everybody who likes the fall, I will see you on the fall being a nice season. That's fine, but this isn't Stars Hollow. And that means that all the fall does is it lurches you closer to actual winter brand winter. And here in this province, winter starts in like October and it lasts until May. Mm-hmm. So the fall is a real big downer for that reason. Yeah, I know in like Connecticut or whatever, you can just wear a scarf in the winter and a cute, like very light jacket, and there's like maybe half an inch of snow, maybe on like Christmas Eve, and that's it. No. Here, when winter hits, it's minus 35. You can't start your car. You can't drive down your own street because it hasn't been plowed ever. You have to put on several layers just to go outside to avoid snapping your legs off from being frozen to death. And that's your lot.
Yeah.
And it lasts forever. It lasts for so long. And like that's the real problem with fall. Is not like that I don't like pumpkin spice lattes and cozy evenings in front of the fire. It's that like that's all lies brought to you by America, where in most of America they don't really have winter. No. Like not that we have winter.
They have winter light.
Like what they would have, honest to God, is like 'cause it's so hot down there in like the southern United States or whatever that like you do start to look forward to fall because it like the temperature eases off somewhat.
Yeah.
But what they would call winter, we'd call fall.
Right.
Like, down to about, 10 degrees or whatever overnight. That's their winter. And they're like, wow, this is lame or whatever. But like for us, man, we don't need a break from the heat in quite the same way. We need a break from the cold.
Right.
Which is what summer is.
No, for sure.
Welcome to the Seasons cast.
Yeah, it's the seasonal cast.
And again, if you like the fall and the PSLs and whatnot, have your fun. Like we on the Shepcast endorse you enjoying a public spice, a pumpkin spice latte, or putting on your cute cozy scarves, or whatever. Have fun, enjoy it, have at her. But we don't really endorse winter in the same way, or at least not the Saskatchewan winter. It's cold.
It's cold. I don't like it.
It's real cold.
The thing that I think is the
up.
worst of all is that I have to like wear real shoes and real socks. Because, man, my poor toesies, they don't like being imprisoned like that.
Yeah, they do.
They hate it.
Okay.
Yeah. Welcome to the Toecast.
The Toecast.
Mm-hmm. Talk about the Bible. Make it the Biblecast.
Well, I was worried about us not doing enough banter, and now I'm worried about us doing too much. Jeremiah.
It's a good book.
I'm using the NIV today.
Oh, I'm using the ESV, as I always do. It's like a super short thing, so I'll do it, and you can do let's be honest, I've got the Old Testament, New Testament till we get out of James. Gospel, the Old Testament and the Gospel.
I knew what you were
have
saying
the New
there,
Testament until we're done with James, because what is James again?
It's the best book.
There we go.
What do we got from Jeremiah?
Jeremiah 11:18 through 20. The Lord made it known to me, and I knew. Then you showed me their deeds. But I was like a gentle lamb led to the slaughter. I did not know it was against me. They devised schemes, saying, let us destroy the tree with its fruit. Let us cut him off from the land of the living, that his name may be remembered no more. But, O Lord of hosts, who judges righteously, who tests the heart and the mind. Let me see your vengeance upon them, for to you have I committed my cause.
It's not very long.
It's not very long. Now, Jeremiah in my Bible is quite heavily highlighted because
It's your favorite
it's
book.
my favorite book.
Yeah, go.
And so verse 14 I have highlighted, and I think it gives us some good context for these verses here where it says, do not pray for this people or lift up a cry or prayer on their behalf, for I will not listen when they call to me in the time of their trouble. Like, we're not coming at these verses from a good place. We're coming at them from a place where the people of God have turned away from God, right? Where they have been deceived by the false gods that surround them. Like chapter 11 is highlighted as the broken covenant. Like, they have broken the covenant between them and God.
Yeah, they have.
And this is what we're looking at now, that they are being led to the slaughter. Like, we can look at this as being a foretaste of Christ, a foreshadowing rather of Christ and his being led to the slaughter. But I mean, in the same way, the Israelites here are following whomever, wherever they go, whether it be to the slaughter, whether it be to be a plentiful fruit tree cut down at the roots. Like, they aren't standing tall. They are just swaying, going with whomever is leading them.
They probably figured that there would be no consequence to that.
Absolutely.
They probably said to themselves, we do whatever we want. We'll get away with it.
Yeah.
And like, this is always the way where you assume that there are no consequences whatsoever, that you in some way. Okay, so let's talk about medicine for a second. You know medicine?
Like the stuff that you get from the pharmacy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty much all medicine ever has effects that you want and effects that you don't. All medication basically has effects and side effects. And I thought it would be hilarious to run a scam company that sold allergy medication. Where it would be like Jimmy's allergy medication. It would just be a box of Tic Tacs or whatever, sugar pill, placebo, whatever, and it would say on it, side effects include itchy, watery eyes, runny nose, sore throat, to just basically claim that all the allergy effects were in fact the side effects of the pill. But in reality, every medication that you take has side effects as well as effects. Some of them are very mild. The more well established a medicine is, the fewer side effects it'll have typically, but they all have something, right? Like, you know, even your Tylenol or whatever gives you stomach upset if you go crazy on it.
Yeah.
So everything is managing the effect and the side effect, but you'd be crazy to think that you can take medication, powerful medication, and have no side effects whatsoever. You're gonna have side effects.
Right.
It's gonna be unpleasant in some way or another, and your job is to maximize the effects but minimize the side effects. And right now, culturally at least, we've been assuming that we can take a whole bunch of medication and not have any side effects at all. Like, we've been assuming that everything that we want to keep, we'll be able to keep for sure, and everything we want to get rid of will just be gone, right? That you can take some kind of medication to get rid of your disease, and it will have no other side effects whatsoever. It won't impact the rest of your life at all. When in reality, it will and it does. There are changes that we've made that have very real side effects. For Israel, they figured they could just swap out a god with another god and there would be no side effects whatsoever. No, there are side effects, and quite drastic ones at that. Really hurtful, really harmful ones that kick in right away. Then now you've got to deal with the fact that there are, you can't expect to have all the blessings of following God, and then if you stop following him, to have none of the drawbacks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only 2 verses. So
I know,
what do you
it's
want?
and I think that's the gist of it, right? Up until you get to verse 20, where I'm assuming this is Jeremiah speaking, where he is saying that to God he has committed his cause, that even in the midst of the betrayal of the Israelites, he's remaining committed to God, as perhaps the only one who is still left to, I want to say take up the cross, but obviously that hadn't happened yet.
Take up the mantle?
Yeah, that works too.
Yeah.
To to be there as a devoted Jewish person.
All right.
Yep.
Should we roll along then?
Let's do it.
Okay, fine.
Are you excited?
I mean, I do like the book of James. Does that help?
Yeah.
3:13 to 4:10. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it by his good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, of the devil. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace raise a harvest of righteousness. What causes fights and quarrels amongst you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You want something and don't get it. You kill and covet, but you cannot have what you want. You quarrel and fight, you do not have, because you do not ask God. When you ask, you do not receive, because you ask with the wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world is hatred towards God? Anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. Or do you think that Scripture says without reason that the Spirit he caused to live in us envies intensely, but he gives us more grace? That is why Scripture says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Come near to God, and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up.
We've been cleansing our hands a lot, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
But have we been purifying our hearts?
No, we haven't.
We haven't.
I don't know if it's gotten worse, but it's stayed the same. I don't know. Hard
I
to
feel
tell.
like we've been, like as a society, we've been hardening our hearts to God a lot more as we're desiring. Like we've been isolated. We talk about this, I think, every week about how we've been isolated for the past year and a half. And
Wait, what?
I know, right? Shocker.
Yeah.
But we've become so much more inward focused that we've been hardening our hearts towards humility, towards thinking of others before ourselves, before controlling our tongue, as we saw last week, right? Where we're lashing out, we're trying to do what's best for us instead of what's best for the whole, the people around us, our community, our church family even, right? Where we are not purifying our hearts in the same way, but trying to build ourselves up. We're losing a lot of the humility, a lot of the thinking of others before ourselves.
A lot of the submission to God who would tell us to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're submitting yourself to God, then these are things that you will do because there is a certain love of God about all this, where if he says something and you love God, you'll do what he says because you want to, right? You will say, well, not my favorite, but God commands it, so let's give it a go and see what happens, that kind of thing. And it usually has better benefits. But if you harden your heart to God and won't submit to him, then you will either ignore what he says or you will run it through your filter first, where you'll be all like, well, yeah, but what do I say about this?
Right.
And boy, oh boy, that is the eternal plague of humanity, which is to look at the Word of God and then say, yeah, but what about me, though, here?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is that the first commandment is the first commandment for a reason, right? That you shall have no other gods. You should have one God. God is God. You love him. You serve him. You put him above all things. All things, even yourself. Especially yourself, honestly.
Oh, especially yourself.
And the moment that you replace God with yourself, you are giving the opportunity to put everything first, right? There's a lot of good causes out there that you should be focused on, but not above all else, right?
Yeah, that should be relatively straightforward, but it's not.
It's not.
It's not, but it should be.
Yeah.
It should be a matter of saying that that God requires certain things of you, usually because they're good for you, and that following those is a good idea. And the human heart is one that I may have talked about this before on the Shepcast, I may not have. But imagine a world in which there are poisonous mushrooms and safe mushrooms out there. Well, how do you find that out?
Yeah.
Somebody did,
Yeah.
right? Somebody took a big mouthful of death's cap mushroom and died. And the whole point is that we're supposed to learn from that over time. we're supposed to be like, okay, well now we know not to just go into the forest and just eat random mushrooms. And we were told that growing up like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
We were told the following things: don't eat mushrooms that you find, and secondly, don't hide in fridges.
See, that one was never.
Yeah, well, I'm 5 years older than you.
It's true,
so,
right?
back in my day, they still had like those fridges in junkyards or whatever that would like literally only open from the outside,
Yeah.
like they had a latch on them,
Right.
and like there was probably some child somewhere that had died in a fridge, and like that. But that was, boy, they put the fear of God into you on those.
Yeah.
You do
Well,
not.
I still remember the, I don't know, the little commercial bit, right? With the two puppets, if you don't know just
Yeah.
what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and that was something that ran like multiple times a day. Like,
Oh, it's in your head now,
it's
isn't
in
it?
my head
It
so
lives there.
bad. Like,
Yeah.
and I'll say that sometimes to my kids, right? And they'll just look at me like, yeah, okay.
They don't get the muffin or a beet bit?
No.
Like a muffin or a beet.
I don't even like beets.
Right.
Yeah.
Great bit.
Yeah.
And like it's in your head for forever. Right. Well, like the whole point is that people over time are supposed to learn from the mistakes of those that came before them, right? Like when you have somebody, some caveman somewhere banging rocks together, ate a big mouthful of dead mushrooms and died, so don't eat those.
Yeah.
That's simple, right? Very straightforward. And that's why we were all told from a very early age, don't eat random mushrooms because you don't know which one's which, so stay away. It would be very, very different if every single human being had to learn from scratch every time.
But I feel like that's where we're at right now
That's my
because
point.
we're questioning everything so hard. Like, one of the things that is going around, of course, is you have foragers or whatever who will make videos of themselves going into the forest and foraging mushrooms. And they'll say like, oh, this is a good mushroom. It has delightful undertones of earthiness or whatever, right? And then me, as random Joe Blow, will say, yeah, I remember those videos that said don't eat random mushrooms, but this person is going and finding these good mushrooms. They're getting a ton of followers for doing this. Like, I could probably do the same thing, and I go out and I find a random mushroom and I eat it, and what's going to happen?
Well, it's
Right?
gonna
I don't have
have-
the knowledge to know.
It's going to have undertones of giving you earthiness.
Yeah.
It should all be simple enough. Like we should all be able to learn from things that somebody thought were a really good idea to tell you. Like somebody somewhere said to you, you know, it's a really good idea is to give you this, and you should probably learn from it. And for us all to take that relatively seriously, because it continues and talks about, like in chapter 4, the first verse is there. What causes fights and quarrels amongst you? Gee, what could it be?
Yep.
What could it possibly be?
Well, and exactly, is it not that your passions are at war within you?
Yeah,
and
of course
I
it
mean,
is.
for us, like, we may claim to have a passion towards Christ, which we ought to, but it's quarreling continually with everything that we're being fed, with the with Satan again saying like, did he really say that? Did he really say?
Did the devil really say?
Did the devil really say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people would question even.
Oh, I see. Is this really coming from Satan?
Yeah, absolutely. That they would say, well, why would the bad guy in the Bible say that?
Yeah.
Well,
This sounds very close to what I want to hear.
exactly
Why would
my
the devil
point.
be
Exactly
saying
my
that?
point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
for sure.
Did Satan really say that? Yeah, he did.
Yeah, for sure.
And like your passions are at war within you, and you want something but don't get it. You kill and covet because you cannot have what you want. You quarrel and fight. You do not have because you don't ask God. And when you ask, you don't receive because you ask with the wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. Yeah, okay. And then wrapping it up, hey, this should be in letters so big it's the size of skyscrapers.
Can I read it in mine? Because
Yeah, friendship with the world is enmity towards God.
yes,
Yeah,
like, and
yeah,
that
yeah.
word, that enmity, I feel holds so much power in it because it's not a word that we actually use all that often, right? And so when I hear it,
Got a bit
in
of
my
weight to it?
mind, yeah, it's something that's really important. It's really big. It's something like you said, in skyscraper-sized letters,
It
like
should be really big.
enmity. Like, guys, look at this.
You do realize that it is possible to be an enemy of God. It's very easy to do. And
And unfortunately, it begins when you are placing the importance of yourself above him. right? I mean, we talk about, like in this verse here where it says friendship with the world. Right now the world is feeding you the lie that you are the most important. And guess what? You can't be the most important at the same time that I'm the most important, that the guy down the street is the most important. Because what does that do? That puts us in quarrels with our neighbor continually. That puts us in quarrels with God continually. Like when Jesus breaks down the two greatest commandments into love the Lord your God and love your neighbor
As yourself.
as yourself.
Yeah.
Like that is to avoid something like this where you are placing yourself above all else, because you will only act for yourself, and that causes great chaos through all the world. Does this mean that you shouldn't care about yourself? Of course not. But it means that you need to realize that you have a place, and your place is in relation to everyone else, and especially to God.
Well, and if you're asking for stuff, you're supposed to be asking with the right motives,
Yeah.
right? Like real simple, not complicated there at all. Why did God not do exactly what I wanted? Well, maybe it's not what you needed, and maybe you were asking just for funny good times.
Yeah.
Maybe you're trying to use God like a magic spell to just get what you want.
Or maybe you don't know the even better things that are in store. Like I keep thinking of my kids, right, who will say to me something like, Mom, can we have a cookie before supper type thing? And I'll say no, because I have something for you after supper that you will enjoy more. But their brains can't think that far, right? Because they're focused on that Oreo and can't instead see the Oreo blizzard that's waiting for them after supper, right?
Well, sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's nothing. I mean, like sometimes you don't get what you want. Sometimes what you want isn't good for you. And sometimes when you're saying, boy, I really want this real bad, sometimes the answer is no. And that's a fine answer too.
Yeah.
If you're saying, well, God just made this relationship with this lady that I want to date fall apart because he has a better lady for me in the future. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe there isn't one. Maybe you're like, well, God just, I wrecked my car. Maybe God has a better car in store. Maybe he doesn't.
Right.
Maybe that's fine too. Maybe it's okay for you to not have everything that you want all the time, because maybe a world in which everybody gets a choice of either good or better leads to a generation of spoiled, petulant children.
But even that in itself leads to something better. Like not necessarily better in the way that you would have planned, but better in the way that it gives you an insight you wouldn't have come to on your own. Like, let's say with your car example, right? Like,
Sure.
And I'm going to take this to the extreme and
Go for it.
go for it. So as a person who has crashed their car and your thought is, well, maybe God will give me a better car, and he doesn't. So you're left taking public transit. You realize the inefficiencies of the transit system, and you take on a different role where you're now an advocate for the transit system, right? A way that you wouldn't have been had you been taking the car, opening your eyes to a different thing that you wouldn't have been focused on otherwise, right?
And that's what we mean when we're talking about the right motive. Because if your motive is just to get a cherry on your sundae, then you're going to be pretty mad when something you don't want happens to you.
Yeah.
And you're going to say, well, this only works if it gives me something nicer, and if it doesn't, then I guess no God. And that's as deep as you ever get, instead of saying, maybe this is, in the long run, good for me. Maybe even in the short run. Maybe there are things, maybe when I get whatever I want, it's not helping me any. Maybe something better needs to happen for me that isn't exactly what I want, because maybe, dang it, I'm not the best judge of what's good for me. Maybe I'm not such a great judge of what's good for me, because maybe if I can do whatever I want, it's going to lead to me of doing nothing at all. Just to quote C.S. Lewis, C.S. Lewis quote alert, which I haven't done in a little while. But saying that when human beings are free to indulge themselves to do anything, it just results on just an endless drumming of fingers on the tabletop, where people eventually say, great, I neither did what I wanted to, nor what I should have done. I didn't do anything. And boy, oh boy, how about that, right? It would be awfully nice if we were to, do the things that we're supposed to do, uh, and things that God would have commanded us to do would be very nice. But there's a fair chance we're never going to figure that out if we're just left to our own devices where somebody says, you can do whatever you want. You're like, well, fine.
Well, and it reminds me of when my husband and I are trying to decide where we want to go for supper or something, right? Like for me, the choices are limitless, where he says, well, why don't you just choose what you want? And I'm like, I don't know what I want. There are too many choices. I can't make this decision on my own. Like, can you give me a couple choices that I can choose from type thing? Because I need the direction. I need the direction in my restaurant choosing. I need the direction in how to live my life, right? Where God is saying, here is the path. We talk about it in confirmation, where the law is like the curb, where it guides you along the way that you should be going in.
It would be nice to have something simple laid out for you where it says, here you go. Here's a nice path for you, and to not have you fight it every 5 seconds.
Yeah.